All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, everything school HQ up there in Oak Ridge. College basketball today on this very program with the best college basketball writer going right now, statsbywell.substack.com. Subscribe today. It's Mr. Will Warren. Will, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great. That's a very kind intro. But I would like to dispel a rumor right here at the top. I am not returning to the Big 12. But Colorado
is Bob Huggins?
And I think that's good for them.
Is Bob Huggins returning to the Big 12?
I'm going to keep my comments to myself. He's returning to somewhere other than sports.
Okay. Oh, man. What a mess. I don't even know. Like, I will say it just does feel like it doesn't pertain to college basketball yet. But I do think Gonzaga and UConn, it just feels like the Big 12 is about to be the college basketball haven in the sport. Yeah. And when we look at where the sport's going, everything's going to run through the Big 12. It just feels like in college basketball.
Yeah, and the amount of realignment coverage will not at all be annoying for like the next 5 years of our lives.
We love it. But we're not going to talk about it on this very program. Well, we're going to talk about happy things. Happy things.
There's a guy who got in an argument with me on a chat I'm in who's like, realignment's good because it drives the off-season discourse. And I'm like, we don't need off-season discourse. We can just chill.
That's the guy who pays attention to ratings, where it's like, this did this kind of rating. It's like, did you enjoy it? Like, why do you watch anything for ratings? Why are you watching anything in your personal life? You are not an ad man. You are not a TV exec. You don't need to care. The worst kind of sports fan is the one who's like, but the rating, the national audience isn't going to care as much. It's like, that's not how you watch anything. That's insane. Why are you going to the movies based on?
When I'm picking somebody to root for, I'm rooting for CEOs, baby.
Who doesn't love him? Who doesn't love him? Will Warren. Speaking of people we can't help but love, Rick Pitino and the St. John's Red Storm, which remember this? Remember South Park? Remember Berries? Remember St. John's? I remember St. John's being a pretty good basketball program. Will Warren, Chris Ledlum, old friend. We hardly knew ye here in Knoxville, Tennessee. He officially jumps into the boat with St. John's. Now that it's pretty much settled what St. John's roster is going to look like, and the big overhaul, the Iona transfers that Pitino brought with him, when you look at this group that Pitino is going to have here in year one, Will, how good do you think Pitino actually might have this team right away?
I mean, obviously a long time until November, but when you look at it right now, I mean, I think it's an NCAA tournament roster. I don't think it's like a great team. I mean, people putting them in the top 25, I think that's a hair much. But if we get to that's way off, 8.5 months from now, right? No, 7.5 months from now. It's been a long day. That's a great moment on live radio here. If you get to Selection Sunday, we'll go with that, and they're like an 8 seed, I'll be like, yeah, that feels right. I think that they've got like an 8 or 9 seed roster, which is a giant leap forward from where they've been. Like if they are an 8 or 9 seed in year one, that's a huge success for Rick. I mean, that is smashing expectations. That's going well above and beyond what people have seen there recently. I pulled up their KenPom page because I was curious. I guess I remember them being a little better at one point. But would you like to guess the last time they finished in the KenPom top 40, St. John's?
I'm going to guess it's a Lavin year, right?
It is not.
Oh.
Further back.
2003?
It is the year 2000.
Okay.
So they have gone 23 years without touching the KenPom top 40 at the end of a season. And I mean, if this roster plays up to what it looks like it could be, they'll get there. I mean, Rick, that is kind of a crazy thing to say, is that if they do what a Pitino team generally does, which is overachieve a little bit of their preseason expectations, or at least on paper, they're going to have the best team St. John's has seen in almost 25 years. Which, that's crazy. And it's not even going to be on paper like an amazing team, but they're going to be competent, and that's all they really need to be at first. You don't need them to be instant 2 or 3 seed like they were back in the day. You just need them to be consistently competent again. And if Pitino can achieve that, that's a really good coaching job on his part.
I like it. We'll end the St. John's discussion here. When you look at the Big East, and this kind of will pertain to another team we're going to talk about in a second, but who can you say definitively coming into the year is better on paper than St. John's?
UConn, Creighton, Marquette, and probably Villanova, and that's the list.
Okay. How many tournament teams
think,
is this looking like? 6, maybe?
I think there's only 4, and Villanova kind of feels like a stretch, but I'm willing to give like Kyle Neptune a mulligan year, basically. Like maybe last year is just way harder than we all thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I mean, 5th place finish year 1 is pretty darn good. So Torvik has them 8th and 56th overall, but that's the problem is like the Big East is really freaking good. And so you can be like a bubble quality team, but still be the 7th or 8th best team in that conference. And it's okay. It's not a huge deal. But I think they're going to overachieve that. I've got them closer to and really inside my top 40. I think they're going to strongly contend for an upper half finish in the Big East this year.
Okay. I like it. Mountain West team that struggled last year, and the Mountain West is very fluid at the moment as to who's going to be in the Mountain West very, very soon. That struggled last year, that you like their roster scheme a little bit more this year, Will Warren.
This is I wasn't quite sure which direction to go here because there's 2, and I'll get to the more like moonshot cases later, but one that I actually think is going to be good and not just like has a chance of being good. UNLV. UNLV started last year 10-0, then 11-1 before Christmas. They had some injuries pop up, kind of stopped being so hot in games as well, and went 7-11 in Mountain West play. They looked like an NCAA tournament team heading into 2023, and then the bottom sort of fell out in January. But they've retooled their roster a bit, and I really like what they've done. It's like I really like what you've done with the place. They took some really big swings on talent and like recruiting pieces, so they don't really return a lot from last year's team. I think it's like 27% of minutes or scoring one comes back. But they imported a lot of intriguing names, the big 2 being a pair of Big 12 starters, Jalen Hill from Oklahoma and Caleb Boone from Oklahoma State. I mean, that alone, those 2 are as good and as proven of pieces as anybody in the Mountain West has that's not on San Diego State's roster or maybe New Mexico's. So they're going to have the star power on paper. If they have the depth to go with it, this has the potential to be like the 2nd best team in the Mountain West in a clear at-large bid, which would be a really good step in the right direction for Kevin Kruger and company. If they don't connect, they could finish like 8th because the Mountain West is quite competent all the way through. It's, I don't think that they're going to have the upper tier finishers that they might potentially have. Like I think San Diego State's going to take a little bit of a step back. I'm not totally sold on New Mexico taking that step up. Utah State obviously lost their coach. Colorado State is sort of rebounding from a rough year last year. I don't know as much about Boise or Nevada sustaining their success. So it's going to be a down year, but it's not going to be like a bad year for the conference. They're going to have a bunch of teams that are somewhere from like the 50th to 80th best team in America. And
how many tournament teams do you think?
I think they'll probably get 2 in and maybe a 3rd, depending on how the season goes. But UNLV is going to have a real shot to do it. I like their on-paper talent more than anybody else's but San Diego State, and it's just a matter of if they can get it all to work together. Those 2 and New Mexico, those are the 3 teams I'm really looking at in the Mountain West this coming year for intriguing day 1 teams.
Okay. I like it, Will.
There's a couple of the moonshots I do want to get to.
Yeah.
These 2 teams could really suck, because they are projected, I think, 9th and 11th in the 11-team Mountain West. But I can't quit them, I guess. Fresno State being one. Fresno, it's very rare that you see this anymore, but they have a 5th-year starting point guard, Isaiah Hill. Added Isaiah Pope from Utah Tech, who shot 43% from deep last year. I generally feel like they should be better than they are, and maybe one of these years it's going to work out for them. The other is just that I don't think Wyoming can be as bad as they were again. Jeff Linder's too good of a coach. They are they always seem to be at their best when you expect the least from them.
Hmm.
Uh, and they were unbelievably unlucky last year. I don't think they played a single game with their preferred starting five. They had insanely bad luck in close games. Really good buy low bet this year.
Okay. I like it, Will. This starting five. So John Rothstein tweeted this out today, and I was thinking about it in terms of just it's kind of like the most forgotten hire to me for this cycle is Ed Cooley at Georgetown. Like that's going to take a lot of getting used to. I don't know if that's the same for you, where it's like Patrick Ewing is not going to be roaming the sidelines, and Ed Cooley will not be at Providence for the first time in 37 years. So that's just going to take a lot of getting used to, even though our old friend will be coaching Providence and those Friars. But when you look at the starting five that Rothstein tweeted out about what Georgetown looks like, what does that look like to you? Because you mentioned your top 4 to 5 in the Big East at the top of the show here with St. John's. What does that look like for you right now?
It looks like about 5-15 in the Big East to me. I do not think that's a good roster. I'm sorry. Like, so Cooley, obviously great coach. Cooley, not like a night one miracle worker. The Providence build took a long time to put together. Fairfield took a while as well. I don't think that he's going to fix all of their problems in one off season. And really, of the pieces they've got, there's not many that you can point to and say, like, yeah, we have proven data showing this guy is awesome. So they're pinning a lot on Jay Heath, who was, frankly, very mediocre guard for them last year. You got some intriguing transfers, Acock from UConn, right? Where he was, I guess he played for Georgetown last year, but he was very ineffective last season. I mean, Dontrez Styles, I guess you could point to and be like, oh, UNC transfer, maybe it works out for him. Jaden Epps from Illinois, I guess that could be interesting. But what they feel like to me a little bit is Mid-Atlantic LSU from last year, where they've really had to overhaul the roster, and there is talent there. There's plenty of it. But I struggle to see where in one off season all of the things that ailed them are going to go away, and they're going to be like mid-pack Big East. I don't think they'll be worse than DePaul, just because I mean, at a base level, I think you have a basic expectation that Ed Cooley will get more out of his roster than Tony Stubblefield will.
Can I say the first comment, and it has 12 likes under this tweet, that when you brought up DePaul, I just had to shout this out. And
please.
DePaul is officially on notice.
Yeah, the DePaul Georgetown Butler triad battle for dead last is going to be one to watch. That's what everybody will be paying attention to this winter.
But will it be fun bad? Or is Georgetown going to be watchable bad? Are they going to be fun bad? Or are they going to be pesky?
But here's the thing. I thought they were watchable bad last year because they were that bad. That was like an intriguing level of badness because it's Georgetown and they just shouldn't hit those depths. So I actually, there were games of theirs I quite enjoyed watching last year from a, like, not as a mean viewpoint, but just out of fascination of like how much worse can this possibly get. But I mean, like, pure aesthetics, they'll be more watchable this year. They'll definitely play a lot better defense.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, they'll probably finish ahead of DePaul. But yeah, I mean,
what a statement, by the way. They'll probably finish ahead of DePaul. Like, that should be the Big East book. Like, I don't know if Dana O'Neill needs to write that, but like, if you're gonna do like a Big East book, like chronologically, like, or just like looking through the conference and something that's actually kind of funny, they're probably gonna do better than DePaul is the title that it should be. Poor DePaul,
like, good
man.
progress for them this year. Honestly, this is going to sound pathetic, but if you can finish ninth, you're in the right direction.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're better than DePaul, and I'm taking a stab and saying Butler is probably going to be the other team at the bottom. I just don't really like their roster much. So, and I've yet to be convinced that Thad Matta is not just mailing this in.
How old is Thad Matta? Let's see.
Not as old as you think.
Yeah, he's only 56. He's too young to be mailing it in.
Well, right, but they were the opposite of hard effort players last year, especially after their hot start wore off.
It's true. 14-18 last year, 6-14 in the Big East, and they finished ninth. Yeah, I don't know. That's Man, that's maybe one to watch.
I do like their list of road wins last year is amazing. Butlers. Let's do a quick little
mhm.
uh, off course tracker here. Cal, who I think went three and it was Cal who went 3-29. Yeah, I think.
Oh, I
There you go. You're good. Now I'm back on.
Oh, I was muted. I was coughing, and I just realized I was hitting the mute button to cough, like to block my cough. Did you just hear me cough?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that was backwards. So I did it backwards. I was like, all right, well there you go. That's
okay.
for the good folks watching on YouTube.com. They can get that little insight. Sorry, continue.
3 road wins here. So Road Cal, they won by 24. 3-29 Cal. Georgetown, they beat Georgetown by 29. And DePaul by 1 point. Those were their wins away from home last season.
Interesting. Well, there you go, Will. The Georgetown Hoyas probably going to be bad again, but maybe trending in the right direction. I want to do this each week, and this is something that I think could be fun. Maybe get you ready for the college basketball season a little bit here. Just picking one transfer target pickup, and just one guy each week that you're intrigued by with his new spot, his new landing spot. Who do you have this week that you're most fascinated in?
So there's a few different directions I think I could have gone here. But Bart Torvik's site, they've got this little thing. They've got the PRPG, which is more or less like points above replacement. But they have one called D-PRPG, which is like a combination of offensive value, defensive value, and how much time you're actually on the court. Would you like to guess the number one player in the portal who was number one in this stat?
And what was the stat measuring?
This is just overall value.
Overall value in the
And this
portal.
player was on a Big Ten team, and it is not Hunter Dickinson.
I was gonna say like that. Okay, it's not Hunter Dickinson.
No. And I will go ahead and say I'm not entirely sold on the value of this stat, but look, you need a storyline at some point.
I have no idea. Who would it be?
It is Cam Spencer from Rutgers.
Oh, I never would have guessed that.
He graded out tremendously, both on offense and defense. All around very solid player.
Yeah.
So they have this, obviously the stat box plus minus, both offense and defense, graded out extraordinarily well in both. 43% shooter from deep, very high steal rate, very low turnover rate, good on-ball handler. And I think he's a really intriguing piece to me because he was already an up transfer from Loyola, Maryland at Rutgers last year and got much better than he was at Loyola, which was surprising. He was already pretty solid there, and then he turned into a star level guy at Rutgers. I don't know that a second leap is in the books, but if he sustains that level of play, he kind of becomes, aside from Klingon, the most important player on the defending national champion. And I find that inherently very interesting. They're putting a lot on his shoulders, I think. The backcourt has had to sort of heavily be remade after, you get some surprise departures, you win the title, things happen. But partnered with Tristan Newton, I think he's going to be a really great piece for them. Solomon Ball will get some time in the backcourt, as will Hassan Diarra. But Spencer is going to, I am assuming, get the lion's share of time both on and off ball in the backcourt. And, I mean, UConn had some great pieces last year, obviously. But I don't know that they had somebody quite this good defensively, like as an individual one-on-one defender in the backcourt last season.
Yeah.
And so giving Dan Hurley that piece feels dangerous to me. That doesn't feel like a nice thing to do to the rest of college basketball.
Interesting. Do you think they're better on paper than they were a year ago?
I think heading into the season, they're better than I thought they would be heading into last season. I don't think they have the best roster. I still believe it's Purdue. But like, if they played expectation, they're going to be a top 5 team again.
Yeah.
I mean, it took early a little bit, but that thing is absolutely rolling now.
They just took advantage of like the no elite teams last year. Like they were just the most solid and just the most complete on both ends, where it was just like, just calm and steady. We're not going to be elite at any one particular thing. We're just going to be really good at everything. Pretty deep. Just take care of business. The lunch pail kids up there in stores.
They also had the piece where your all-star center, who's one of the best players in America, suddenly starts shooting threes and hits them at like 35%. And then his backup is a 7'3" freak who's going to be a NBA center one day.
No.
So
let me
that's a
just
nice
also say,
thing.
seeing Euros Plavsic drain a three in the Hawks Summer League was jarring.
It was
Absolutely
horrible.
jarring.
I don't want to see it again.
No. Will, final big thing here, and it brings me no joy to throw this your way, but you are going to surprise some folks with this team. The Nebraska Cornhuskers, Hoiberg's bunch. Am I wrong in remembering that you're optimistic about this team going into this year? Were you tweeting
Yes.
publicly? Were you throwing this out into the public orbit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this team. I mean, they were their usual awful selves opening last season because for whatever reason, and I feel like they had this issue at Iowa State. I might be misremembering, so forgive me. But it felt like a lot of the Iowa State teams that Hoiberg had also started seasons poorly. Like it just took them a month or whatever to get going.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the back half of Big Ten play, these guys rocked. So Nebraska,
rock,
January 31st, Nebraska loses to Illinois 72-56. They're 10-13, 3-9 in the Big Ten. Doesn't seem like there's much of a future there. They went 6-2 the rest of the way very quietly and picked off some nice wins. They beat Rutgers on the road by 10, beat Iowa on the road on Iowa's senior day, picked off Wisconsin at home, Maryland at home, and Penn State at home. I mean, the only two losses they had were to tournament teams that time. They really seemed to get better the more they turned it over to Casey Tominaga, who is one of the most enjoyable players to watch in all of college hoops. Just a delight there in the backcourt, and he comes back for his senior year. I'm still waiting for them to put it together for 4 months. Hoiberg's teams at Nebraska kind of had like a good month here and a good month there. But last year down the stretch was the first time where I started to feel convinced they were putting it together a little bit.
But when you look at them as a whole and betting on Nebraska, what do you think is going to be their thing? What do you think is their calling card? If you had to just predict, and you're looking at Bart Torvik in February, and this looks like a tournament team, where do you think they're excelling at in the step?
I think Hoiberg's thing has always been offense, and I feel like that's going to have to be it this year. They really did not have a very good offense last year. They shot it well from two, but one of the worst free throw shooting teams in America somehow, despite having like a great shooter in Tominaga and some other competent guys off the bench. They have really boosted the shooting around him this year, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do with that. So Juwan Gary comes back for another year. The piece they added that I think is really interesting is Bryce Williams from Charlotte, who I talked about a couple months back. Bryce Williams kind of plays like a 6'7" version of Santiago Vescovi on offense. He just runs off screens the whole game and wears out his opponents. But he's 6'7", so he can actually drive to the lane and dunk too. I mean, he has a chance for a real glow up at Nebraska that's going to earn him a lot of spotlight if he plays it correctly. But they've got some pieces all over the court to where they don't have a great center. I mean, Rink Mast is going to be good. He's a Bradley transfer, but he's just 6'9" in a conference where everyone's centers are 7 feet or taller. So they could be in trouble there. But we have the example already of how that works. We saw Penn State do it last year without a true center. They space the floor out. You make Edey. You make, well, I guess no longer Dickinson, but Terrace Reed. You make all of the centers in this league come out and defend your 5-man 25 feet from the rim, which opens up the lane, which allows you to kick it out more for threes. I think the way that he's built this roster, it's his smartest build yet. It's the one that looks closest to an Iowa State roster of his past. I mean, the Big Ten is going to be hyper competitive as it always is, but this is a team that went 9-11 in a very solid, if not elite, Big Ten last year. Was better than their record showed. Started to really come together down the stretch. Has an identifiable star and go-to guy in Tominaga. They have a lot of things that teams that miss the tournament generally don't have. That's a regretful thing to say for sure, but I think that they are going to be on the right side of the bubble this coming year.
There you go.
I like them. I can't quit Nebraska. They need something good in their lives.
Well, I just look at Nebraska. I'm like, if Iowa can do what they do, you can do what Iowa does. Like, that should be the calling card for Nebraska basketball. Iowa can do it.
Exactly. And all you have to, I mean, if they go full offense this year, you are just doing the Fran model, basically.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I would do.
Yeah, which is fine. Like, that clearly works.
Yeah. Who wins more games this year, Iowa or Nebraska?
Probably Iowa. And I'm only saying this because Iowa always plays like an annoyingly soft home schedule in the non-conference. I feel like they're basically the same team in Big Ten play. Like, they'll both be 11-9 or something. But Iowa loves scheduling like Eastern Illinois or Western Illinois or Nebraska Omaha at home. They don't get serious until January.
No.
And they will also love having like the third best offense and 130th best defense.
We love that, don't we, folks?
Heck yes. They are honestly, if you had an NBA league pass for college basketball, Iowa's a top 10 team every year.
Oh, yeah.
Easily.
Tennessee's never on that list.
No, Tennessee's like 50th.
Yeah, that's not a thing. Will Warren, also in what just popped in my feed, the Johnny's highlights. Some real sicko stuff because the algorithm knows that we're talking about St. John's on this podcast. True or false? A player named Chudney Gray had a clutch basket in the quarterfinals of the Big East tournament against Villanova.
Chudney?
Yes.
I have to imagine that's true.
That is true. This player had 21 points. Bootsy Thornton. True or false?
False.
Nope, true. Both real players,
Bootsy
both important players in the 2000 St. John's Red Storm.
Oh, okay. I thought that Chudney Gray, I was like, oh, there could not be a person named Chudney in 2023. But I'm assuming he's still with us.
I hope so. I hope so, Will.
I hope he has a nickname.
There you go. Final thing before we get out of here, Will. Stat that has caught your eye this week.
We don't ever do gambling stuff on this show, and
no.
You kind of know my thoughts on it. But prepping for some
preseason going well in the
stuff.
NFL.
Huh?
It's going really well in the NFL.
I know. It's going great, and not bitter at all about Jameson Williams' suspension. Anyway, I did find an intriguing stat while prepping for some preseason stuff. So, team rankings, helpfully, wonderful site, by the way. They track both like cover percentage and whatnot, but also pure scoring margin against the spread. So FAU, number one, obviously, they're overperforming by 5.2 points per game. Alabama, number two, plus 4.9. UConn, number four, plus 4.3. Who do you think was number three?
What was the stat? One more time?
This was overperformance against pregame spread.
Ooh. What conference?
This will really get you. The Ivy League.
Oh, Harvard?
It was Yale.
Oh!
Yale was the third best team last year at overperforming at plus 4.4 points per game. I think I've gone on record as saying I really like them this year. They've got a lot of returning pieces from a team that was better than the Princeton team that made the Sweet 16. But you'll never know that because they didn't get the opportunity. But they return 4/5 of their starting lineup, should have 4 10-plus points per game scorers. I think they're going to be really good this year. Like I don't know about an at-large
Did that 2020 team get ranked?
I don't think so. I think what was his name? Makai Mason?
Sounds
the
right.
team that beat Baylor. I feel like they got ranked at one point.
Okay. I feel like I remember Yale being ranked. I feel like they got in at some point. And maybe it wasn't the 2020 team, but I feel like they got ranked.
I'm sprinted to College Basketball Reference. It does not appear they were ranked in the AP. But I'm willing to bet they were like receiving votes or something.
Okay, maybe that's it. No. There you go.
Interesting.
Will Warren, optimistic about the Yale Bulldogs.
Yeah, big Ivy League guy here. Big fan.
Big Ivy League guy, Will Warren. Will, what can the good folks check out from you and the fantastic college basketball website, statsbywill.substack.com? Subscribe today. What content do you got for us here on this off-season edition here as we get closer and closer to July? It's football time in Tennessee, almost, but college basketball never sleeps either, sir.
Right. At my website, you can get an article or an essay, I guess, I wrote last week on giving up pickup basketball for running. and mostly
Been
being okay
there.
with that.
You're just like you're doing my life. You're just 5 years behind me. Like you're just it gets harder. Your knees hurt more.
I did pick up a fun injury this week. I was
no.
mowing and I fell down. It was on a hill.
Okay.
And I was holding onto the mower
happen?
and my thumb bent. And so I've got a sprained thumb and I cannot shoot with my right hand. I've been trying it for a couple of days and I cannot grip the ball. So I am a lefty now temporarily.
Join us. There are dozens of us, Will. There are dozens of us.
It was so embarrassing. I was glad no one was out to see it.
Oh man, but lefty.
But I've got an interview coming with a NAIA coach who runs the most fascinating defense in American college hoops right now. It's a 1-2-2 zone defense for half court, and it is. They wrote it to a national title, so I'm excited to write about that. And then inspired.
Don't get any ideas, Rick.
Yeah, no zone, please. Inspired by a tweet I saw, I think I'm going to undertake the Herculean task of finding the best band in every state in America.
Okay.
I will go ahead and tell you, Alaska, nigh impossible. Couldn't tell you the first thing about who is from Alaska other than Jewel.
Okay. There you go.
There's some project. Can you tell that I need a little more sport in my life?
Hey, we're almost there, Will. We are almost there. But folks, don't wish your don't wish your wife away, but also don't wish your life away. Enjoy the day. Find the positive in each and every day. Go do something nice. Go touch some grass. Go run a mile. Go enjoy your life. Watch Righteous Gemstones. Check in on what seriously. Keith's situation is. Go see a hilarious fight between a scorned lover and the one who his wife had an kind of an adulterated affair there, and watch that for a solid 2 minutes because it's an absolute delight. Not a sponsor, but it could be. Righteous Gemstones always and forever. Will Warren, thank you as always, my friend, and I will talk to you next week.
Well done, nephew. Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.